Welcome back to another episode on the Doughty podcast. I've actually already recorded this episode, and it was, I went deeper on some things I've never really shared before, some things that were kind of esoteric, sharing my perspective of what I think is really going on right now, and some desperate attempts that I think the Cabal is making to shift us to a more negative timeline. And in general, I want you to know that it's actually a very positive thing that I think is happening, even though it looks negative on the outside. I think more people than ever are going to be waking up. And the reason they're doing these desperate attempts of, in a way, emotionally manipulating people with the media, with different things, even though they're doing all this, they're doing it because it's their last attempts to retain control and to remain in power. And in this episode, what I do is I share with you what I think is happening. I share different layers to it. I share a larger viewpoint of it, but then I also go a little bit more in detail with it as well. And what we can do to wake up, because really that's what this is all about. People are waking up from watching the media. People are waking up, and it's actually having a lot of good. You know what really ruined it for people? It's the internet. The internet ruined it for the Cabal, because now there's so much that can be shared on the internet that there's too much transparency. Back in the 90s and the 80s, they could hide this stuff so easily because they controlled all the media outlets. Well, now almost every single person that has a phone is a media outlet. So it's very interesting. But in this episode isn't for everybody, by the way. This episode is a little more esoteric, a little more conspiracy theory type stuff. But I share with you the kind of the research that I've done, kind of the way that I think about it, and just kind of different perspectives about it. But I'm not in any way trying to tell you what to think, tell you what's 100% true or not true. But I'm just trying to show you from the research that I've done what I believe. And before we get too much into it, if you're watching this on the second YouTube channel, then you'll see the video of what I'm about to share with you. And if you're listening on the podcast, that's cool too. I just kind of want to explain something that I recently did with a friend. I have this higher self painting that my friend Dana made for me. She's an artist. What she does is she channels what are called light codes. I know it sounds kind of esoteric, but she channeled what's called my higher self. And it was a painting that took her 3 months to make. And it was this huge painting, 6 foot by 5 foot. And there's a picture of my higher self, which is a symbol to me of this connection to myself in a way. And there's all these really cool symbols on the side, Machu Picchu is one of them. And I'm in a creek, which kind of reminds me of Sedona. And there's stars systems in the back. It's really, really cool. It's amazing. But she's an amazing artist. So what I did with her is, what she does is she channels what are called light codes into her paintings that then activate. You can literally feel it. And what that helps to do is, as you feel different emotion on the inside, what begins to change on the outside? I feel more clarity and connection when I'm looking at that higher self painting. And I, in a way, tap into my own part of my consciousness with it. So one thing I did with her is I teamed up with her. She made 2 paintings, one for attracting love, one for attracting abundance, and put those light codes into them. And what you can do is put those in your room, put those in your house, and every time you see it, it is activating that energy inside of you with whatever that intention was. The intention for one of them is love. The intention for the other is abundance, because those are the 2 challenges that mostly my audience has. So look at this one. If you're on the YouTube channel, you can see it. This is a canvas, and it's also a canvas that you can get as well. It's kind of as a photo of these 2 hands kind of touching with this symbol in the middle and all these light codes along the side. It is so activating, so cool. And what you do is when you get this painting, this canvas, you get with it a premium meditation. That's a guided meditation that you activate the painting with. And then every time you see it, you're activating that energy inside of yourself. And I will say that if you put different paintings above your bed, that's a very powerful way to bring in manifestation in your life. For example, I put above my bed in Vegas a picture of Sedona. Guess where I'm at right now? I'm in Sedona. Been here for months. So it's almost like these symbols embed into your subconscious mind, and this light code is kind of the secret sauce that really makes it very powerful, very activating. This one's for divine love. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can just go to lightcodeart.com, lightcodeart.com, and you can check them out. Also, you have this one right here for abundance. So this is a symbol for abundance. Look how cool that is with all the light codes in it as well. When you do the meditation, you stare at this, it's activating that abundance within you. And every time you see it, even subconsciously throughout your day, it's activating that energy inside of you. And both of these paintings you can get right now. We've made 444 prints of each, and it's canvas you get, by the way, too. You're not going to get these in just a little print thing that you have to frame and spend more money. You literally, this is the exact size of the most popular one, and you can get it by going to lightcodeart.com, and it's an actual canvas. And there's, I'm going to make sure this episode goes out sooner because I'm ahead on podcast episodes, because we're going to be, I need to make sure it goes out sooner so that you get it before it's sold out. But you can get either of these, the one for attracting love, the one for attracting abundance. This is the actual size of the one you would get to kind of see. And there's also a bigger size too. It's a little bit more, but a little more, but it's a little bit bigger as well. But this is I think it's 24, I forget. But anyways, these paintings are activating. They're amazing. I think they're beautiful. I have them in my own house. I have them in my house in Vegas and my house here in Sedona. And I love these. So whether you want to attract love into your life or attract abundance, get these paintings, get these canvases, put it in your house, watch how it activates energy inside of you, and watch how when you do that, it then begins to change your life. These paintings you can get right now by going to lightcodeart.com, Check it out. And there's still some, you'll see how many are available. It's linked up to how many are actually left. And they will be shipped to you. It's actual canvas. There's 2 sizes. There's this size and then a bigger size. Get whichever one resonates with you. And there's still some left. I'm going to make sure this episode goes out ASAP so that you guys for sure can grab your version of it. And you can get that by going to lightcodeart.com. So L-I-G, how do you spell light? LIGHTCODEART.com. So anyways, with that being said, let's get into the rest of this episode right meow.
Welcome back to another episode on the Aaron Doughty podcast. My name's Aaron Doughty, and today's episode is going to be kind of much deeper and a little bit more esoteric. This episode's not going to be for everybody. It is going to involve a little bit of the conspiracy theory type information, which I know some people love when I talk about, and some people get kind of triggered, or they think, it brings stuff up for a lot of people. And the way that I go about this, as I've mentioned in many views, I like to research different ideas. I look at many different forms of things that I learn as I go through this process, and I'm kind of discovering my own perspectives about this. But I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm not here to influence you to go down these conspiracy theory routes. I do believe I am here in a way to help you question reality a little bit more, because I believe a lot of what's going on right now in the world, people are accepting at face value. And then what's happening is they're getting kind of caught up in the web of everything that's happening. And it's very, very, very obvious to me that there's something, I'm sure many of you can feel it. Can you feel that something is happening right now? Can you feel that almost like at the beginning of the year when everything was happening, you kind of feel something was a little bit off? It's almost like fabricated. Not just exaggerated, but fabricated, or almost looks like it was kind of planned out in a way. And there we go, right? We start going down the conspiracy theory route. But the reason I want to talk about this is because right now, with everything going on, as I make this episode right now, we still have kind of the election is still being figured out. We're in the months where, it's funny because astrology and many different other forms of have kind of pointed at this time on the planet being so transformative and uncertain. And it's funny because as the election comes up, now it's like up in the air. There's all this stuff going on. There's big polarization going on, and the thing that I also want to point your eyes, or your not, I kind of want to open up to help you open up to is understanding, first off, that questioning the government has been primed and anchored that is a negative thing to do, to question the government, or even to learn about conspiracy theories. Conspiracy, I think the word itself has to do with like some type of secret intentions of a certain group. That's what a conspiracy means. Yet, when we hear the words conspiracy theory, we're primed and anchored to either go into fear or to like think of some like tinfoil hat people that are like doing some crazy thing. And that's intentional. that was intentional by people that wanted us to be afraid of going against the conspiracy theories and not necessarily looking into them. And let me be honest with you guys. I don't believe many conspiracy theories that I hear, but I do believe some of them. And that's where discernment comes in. One of the most important parts of this process, as I'm talking about the Cabals' desperate attempt to shift us to a negative timeline, because I believe that at higher levels, or whatever we want to call it, the elite, they understand that there are different timelines that exist. And what they understand is that if you can control the perspective and the belief system of millions of people on the planet, you can control the timeline. If you can control the belief systems of millions of people, you can even have them increase the probability of something coming into their life that would make them have flu symptoms and stuff like that. And that's the interesting thing, because when we learn about consciousness, the mind affects the body. So what if a lot of what's going on at the beginning of the year, he who must not be named thing going on, Voldemort, that's what I say, because if you say it on YouTube or on different things, that's the censorship. What if getting in the minds of the people, having a ticker on every news station that is constantly going up, so people believe that this thing is so common to get, and then it's increasing the belief system that they can get it too, and then when they do start to get it, it becomes in a way a self-fulfilling prophecy, because that's how powerful the mind is. The mind is so powerful that it can even bring things and shut down the immune system so that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. What if that was a huge driver in this whole thing going on? So what certain people know, certain elite people, whatever we want to call it on the planet, that want to divert the timeline, is they know that if they can control your belief system and your attention, they can control your life. And if they can do that for millions or billions of people on the planet, then they control they control reality. They know that. That is why it's like, what, 6 major corporations own almost all the mainstream media? And there's a certain perspective that the mainstream media wants you to have. And if things go against that, then that's where... That's really what's happening right now, by the way, too. I think that they're, in a way, my buddy Drew was saying the other day, the astrology, the planet constellation that was around back during the Civil War time, back in the late 1800s, had it, like they could say astrology reflects what's going on in the world or vice versa. The same astrology planetary alignments that happened during the Civil War is going on right now. Now, I'm not saying that to put you in fear, because this is a different type of war. That's what I believe. It is a war of consciousness. It is a war of power, but not necessarily in the same way where it was so physical back in the 1800s. I think that that's where our level of consciousness was back then. It was much more physical in the way that we got back at people as we fought. But now it's a war on consciousness, on big media and people's attention. And there's people that understand if they can control your attention, and if they can trigger and emotionally manipulate you, then they retain their power. And when you look at what's happening right now, if you let's just kind of look at it for a minute. And I'm going to use this analogy because we look at what happened at the beginning of the year with Voldemort. He who must not be named thing that happened, pandemic. Can you even say pandemic anymore? I don't know. On YouTube. Whatever. It's my second channel. I could do that. What happened is they shut everything down in March. And then after a month, they opened some things back up. Things started to open back up. You could go out to restaurants. You could do different things. And for a week, it was yes, everyone's yes, we can be around people. This is great. And then what happened is they shut it all back down again. And it's interesting because it was almost like you give a kid candy and then you take it away. But when you were looking at what was happening at the beginning of the year with He Who Must Not Be Named, there was a lot of things that weren't adding up. I made videos on this. And it was very polarized. And I had some people that loved when I talked about this and some people hated because I was questioning the government. And in a way, when you watch the movie The Matrix, you know the movie The Matrix with Agent Smith, and it's like a Neo, and it's like everyone's a part of the Matrix, and some people will fight. I think I remember Morpheus was telling Neo, people will fight to establish what they believe and to re-emphasize what they believe to be true because they are so bought into the system itself. So here, there's a lot of people that are anchored and believe that all conspiracy theories are bad and to think and have negative connotations about it. They've got the bug in it of themselves of being anchored with it. So when somebody else starts talking about it, they then get triggered and then have a lot to say about it because they want to reestablish their belief system within the system. Me, I'm like, what? People can believe whatever they want to believe. I made videos about this, though, because things just weren't adding up with He Who Must Not Be Named, Voldemort, at the beginning of the year. What was examples of that? A couple examples were they were claiming that it was so rampant and so huge that all the hospitals were full in New York. And that's what the media was doing, is showing just like a couple hospitals. And then there were people that got arrested for breaking into empty hospitals with nobody in them. That looks a little bit fishy. And they got in trouble for doing that. And it was obvious that maybe, I'm just the reporter here. I'm just telling you what a lot of people were sending me articles to and stuff like that. But maybe they'd pushing people so on the media, then they could post things and it would look a certain way. Not only that, there were media companies that got caught using footage from Europe when explaining and showing things from the U.S. So there was proof of that. Not only that, I got to go back to those videos. There was many layers to this, but it was very obvious that it was extraordinarily exaggerated. I'm not saying it didn't exist. I'm not saying a lot of people weren't hurt from it, but I will say this too. My own grandpa, who passed away, they claim that he passed away from the thing that happened at the beginning of the year. Really, he was 80 years old, over 80 years old. He was in the hospital, and he needed his dialysis. They wouldn't give him his dialysis because he was in a certain wing of the hospital where he had that thing. So the real reason was he didn't get his dialysis. That's why he passed away, not because of the thing that he even told us on the phone. He goes, I don't have this thing. They're saying I have it. And then it was very obvious, though, that even him was saying that. I don't have this thing that they're saying I have. I just need my freaking dialysis. So that was from my own personal life. And, I had a lady that was going to cut my hair last week. 4 weeks ago. She got it, right? Even now, but here in December or November, she got it. And you know what she told me? She told me, I had like a mild headache for a couple days or some type of headache for a couple days. And that's totally fine. Her boyfriend had it as well. Totally fine. His boyfriend didn't have any symptoms at all or anything. What if the tests, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. But what I'm saying is it's been extraordinarily exaggerated. And one of the reasons it could have been exaggerated is there's this certain, when you talk about Bill Gates too, if you look, Bill Gates had a TED Talk back in like 2015 or something like that, talking about the next thing that's going to happen. And it's almost like a lot of this stuff was planned or seeded at different levels to get people ready for it. And it's interesting how weird it is that he's talking about that, and then all this stuff happened, and even certain movies, I think the way that the cabal or whatever we call it works is they use Hollywood and the media to prime people for different things. And part of the way our reality works is we live in a form of not virtual reality, but like this reality, We are eternal spiritual beings inhabiting temporary human bodies. So we're spiritual beings having human experiences. And one of the things that happens is that we have free will here. And one thing that the Cabal knows is they do a lot of dark magic. They do a lot of, and who is the Cabal, right? It's a lot of elite. It's a lot of, it's a lot of different family bloodlines. It's people that understand, it's been passed down for many, many generations. And they normally will reach out to many elite celebrities that garnish a lot of attention and get them involved into their dark magical rituals. It's pretty esoteric stuff that I think they deal with and that they work with. But they do it. And, we could go even more conspiracy theory route-ish, but yeah, how far do we want to go this soon in the episode? There's, in a way, a war of consciousness happening on our planet, and it's because there's so many people waking up. It's very positive in many ways. There's so many people waking up in the planet, and we have the ability in this lifetime to transition into a much higher state of consciousness. And I think that a lot of us right now are beginning to feel that. And if you listen to my content, by the way, then you're somebody that's already open to this type of information, because you wouldn't even resonate with a lot of the stuff that I talk about unless you were already internally there and this process has been started. But if we kind of expand the scope back a little bit, what we see is that we are eternal spiritual beings having temporary human experiences, that many of us came here to help with this global shift in consciousness that's happening. We're, in a way, evolving our consciousness out of necessity, too, because if we don't, we're literally going to destroy the planet. Dolores Cannon, her books talk a lot about this back in the 1930s, 1920s, when nuclear bombs were starting to go off. A call was put out into the universe where a lot of people that already had connections to Earth from past lives and different timelines decided to come back to help the planet ascend. Because the way that this reality works is, in order to really influence it, you have to play by the rules. And part of the rules are that you become a part of the system rather than just, some savior complex that a lot of people have, that ETs are going to come down. Higher dimensional beings are going to come down, give us technology, and we're just going to evolve our state up. It's no, we're doing this from the inside out. And part of the rules is you have to incarnate into the system, which means you have to forget who you are, then go through the process of remembering who you are to really influence it. So many of us heard that call. We didn't want Mother Gaia, planet Earth, to be destroyed. We felt a connection to it, maybe from ancient lifetimes, maybe from more recent lifetimes. But also, this is also talked a lot about in the books, The Law of One, by the way, which also talks about how the government has, The Law of One, some of the most profound channeled material that exists. And it's a physicist asking his wife questions, and his wife is channeling the information. It's 5 books, very deep. But it talks a lot about, there are negative entities. There are, there's different density beings, 4th density, 3rd density, 5th density beings. We're in 3rd density transitioning to 4th density right now. And that's what's happening on the planet. And that's what's been happening since harmonic convergence of 1980s. It's going to continue to happen. And this is what's called the harvest in the book, The Law of One. The harvest is where there's the seed that's planted, where many of us can transform into a higher level of consciousness, where literally life is more dreamlike. We have more intuitive abilities. We have more connections to each other. We create more harmony. It's more like we're bringing our higher self into our bodies. And life can just get so much better. But there are entities, negative entities, that don't want this to happen because because of the energy frequency of them, they feed on negative energy. So what they do is they either incarnate into different bloodlines, or they influence people of power and bait them in a way at different levels of consciousness to get them to be a certain way, to do these different dark rituals that then brings dark energy into the planet, that then keeps the planet in lower vibrations so that they can exist here. Because as the planet continues to raise in frequency, they cannot exist in it as it raises to higher levels. And even many of the entities, I think, that used to be here, we talk about entities, they're fourth density, normally negative beings that have negative intentions, normally control and power. There's a show I used to watch called Cosmic Disclosure, and there's a lot of whistleblowers that talk about it. And even there's this one guy, his name's William Tompkins. He passed away when he was like 80-something years old, and on his deathbed, he was explaining a lot of the things that he experienced. High-level general in the Army or the Navy, I think. And he was talking about reptilians. And he was talking about how they made deals with the Nazis back in the day, the German Nazis, and there was deals that were made, and it was for power and that they're negative intentions, and a lot of it has to do with control. And one of the first things they do, if you watch that show Cosmic Disclosure, and there's many different whistleblowers and different levels of things they've worked at, whether it's in underground bases, whether it's the SSP, the Secret Space Program, they all say very similar things. And one thing they say is that when reptilians go into a planetary system and they start to invade it, they start to influence it, one thing they do, these reptilian beings are like, they would probably look scary to many of us, but they literally kind of, they're a mix of like reptiles and they're like humanoid reptiles in a way. And one thing they do normally when they go into a different planetary sphere, from what I've heard from the research I've seen in Cosmic Disclosure, other whistleblowers and other people like that, is one of the first things they do is they will normally implement some type of financial currency system, because then that's how you can start to control things. If you go into a civilization, they're bartering, stuff like that. You put in the financial system, currency, it then starts some level of control. And some of these negative reptilian entities may also be fourth density, a different density, which still we're moving into fourth density, but there still can be polarity in fourth density, positive and negative. And the negative, they go for power, they go for control, they have an extreme psychic ability, they may influence people of power and work deals with them. And it's something that William Tompkins guy was talking about. He talked about the ships, talking about many different things. It was very profound, because this guy's like straight as an arrow guy, not a woo-woo guy at all. And you could just tell he's being authentic with what he's talking about. Many other whistleblowers as well. But basically, there's been a negative influence on the planet for a while of these negative entities. Maybe it's more than just reptilians. Maybe it's different ET races as well. You know, there's thousands or millions of different races of ETs that exist in the universe. And I believe many of us have connections where vast spiritual beings have contemporary human experiences. And we have connections, not just to the human life on Earth. We don't just have past lives on Earth. We have past lives at many different levels of consciousness, or future lives at many different levels of consciousness. Some of us may have parallel incarnations in many different star systems. And maybe that's where a majority of our energy is. And then what happened is, planet needs to ascend into a higher level of consciousness on Earth. And we decided to come back here to reincarnate back into the system to forget who we are, so that we can then remember who we are, so that we can then influence reality from the inside out. And part of this means that a lot of us may have gone through pain growing up, a lot of pain, because that pain may have led to pressure, which led to spiritual awakening. Now, the people on the planet that understand that if you can control, the media, control the narrative, the perspective, the attention, if you can control that, then you can control the reality. You can keep people in a rat race. You can keep people working 9-to-5 jobs they hate. You can keep the money flowing to you. You can keep charging an insane amount for taxes to money that goes to things that we don't even know where the hell it goes. And just to make this, to show you a different layer of this as well, I've known someone in my life that has worked at underground facilities, that worked there for like 20, 30 years. Underground facilities, and a lot of what's talked about in different whistleblowers, and they talk about those underground government facilities. I don't know if it's necessarily government. I think it's private corporations that own it, but it's protected by the army. And there's a lot of these underground facilities. They connect all over, maybe all over the U.S., maybe hundreds of them. And there's like an underground travel system as well, from what I understand and from what I've heard. And what I was told is that it's beyond what we can even imagine. It's beyond the capacity, the size of it, the quickness of it, the technology of it that's been around for years as we get excited for the iPhone 12. And really, there's technology way beyond what we can imagine, but this stuff gets trickled out because there's more money to be made. If you have like one level of technology and then something that's astronomically better, and you just immediately go to the astronomically better, there's not as much money that can be made in between. But if you come out with something that's just 2% better each time to get to that astronomical better, then you can make so much more money because it's kind of playing on the psychology. But just in general, there's technology that I believe exists beyond what we can even imagine. We know that from like Tesla, free energy. I did a report in college on censorship, and I was talking about how the EV1, I think it was the Chrysler EV1, the electric cars have been around since like the 1990s, but they were bought by oil companies and destroyed. And imagine what we'd have today if since the 1990s we were working on electric cars, it'd be crazy. But money, so we incarnated into this system. We're waking up to who we are. We have the ability in this lifetime to really come together and to wake up and to elevate consciousness to a completely new level. But there's a certain elite group people on the planet that are also influenced from negative entities and that want to influence reality to keep it where it is because they're also bringing about the agenda of these negative entities. When we look to some of these celebrities that may be a part of this stuff, these very dark rituals and this negative stuff that's happening on the planet, when we look to these celebrities, understand many of them are puppets. Now, it doesn't make it right, but imagine you get into some type of like secret society where you think you're really special and you think of yourself literally as like some egoic god, and you were baited in using power dynamics, using power, and then you started to do very dark things. That means that now you're already a part of it. So if you do ever go against it, you're already blackmailed. And imagine that then what happens is you are so far deep that you just kind of have to keep on going with it. I think that's why some of the elite celebrities that are a part of it, not all celebrities are a part of it, but there's some elite celebrities that I think are a part of it. And they're in a way puppets. When you look at Bill Gates, I think Bill Gates is just a complete puppet. Now, it doesn't mean it makes it right or wrong for them. I'm just saying that there's different levels to it. What we think of as the end all be all is actually just the surface thing. They just garner the attention, so they get to kind of be the front men and women for it. But what I think is happening is, they're desperately losing this battle. Even though on the surface we look out and it looks like, oh, it looks kind of bad. Like we have this like fraudulent election thing going on. We have this thing at the beginning of the year that was very much exaggerated. Not saying it didn't exist. I'm just saying it was very exaggerated and with a ticker on the news, and it was like making it just way, 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 way worse than it actually was, putting people in fear. And when people are in fear, guess what? They're much more likely to give away their own power. People are much more likely to give away their own their rights. They're much more likely to look to authority for certainty. They're much more likely to say, yes, put that thing in my arm so that I can be safe. They're then being emotionally manipulated. And it's funny, it's not funny at all, but right now, I'm getting ready to leave in a couple days to go to Costa Rica, and there's like different places that are closing and going back into like lockdown and all this crazy stuff. And it is so obvious to me that this is like another tactic. It's like, it's so interesting because it's almost like they're doing this against themselves, right? By this control and this ridiculousness. We talk about the media that's like putting this agenda ahead. It is so obvious to me that this is all a show. This is all manipulation. People are being emotionally manipulated. Go back into lockdown. Take your rights away. Here's the ridiculous thing about what's happening on the planet. At any point, we could come together and stop the ridiculousness. But we don't because we listen to the authority. And we allow, because we buy into the system, this ridiculousness to keep on going. We talk about the It's fun. It's interesting. I was in Colorado when the election was happening, and there were so many people celebrating, and the election's not even over yet. And I'm not here to tell you one way or the other. I'm just observing. And I know as well, I live in Arizona, and I can tell you that I can feel there's some other thing going on for Arizona to go blue, in my opinion, is crazy. Because I live here, and I can tell you that I went to Phoenix to go fly out, and all you do is you see Trump everywhere, on every car, billboards. You hardly see anything to do with with Biden. And I'm not saying that I'm a Trump person, like huge fan. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that I can tell that some people are more bought than others. Some people are less controllable than others. And Biden, I think, is completely put in this position because he's completely controlled. Not saying that Trump doesn't have different agendas. I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying that I can tell for sure that Biden is the big media, corporations, the elite. He's like a little puppet. Trump's much more uncontrollable. I'm not saying he's a perfect little angel, perfect being or anything. It's like the lesser of two evils in a way, even though he comes off as a complete narcissist. It's just so interesting to me that there's this like level of fraud happening, and it's all coming out. Of course, the media is not really covering it, but it's like people got the shot of so many people got the shot of like of validation, like, yes, this guy won, Biden won. And the media and Google was even putting out that he won when there's all these like things going on, his recounts and fraudulent ballots. You want to know something interesting? My sister, they sent the ballot to her. They spelt her last name wrong. She goes in to vote. And when she goes in to vote, what happens is they tell her, oh yeah, we'll change your name right now and put in your ballot. And we're going to put in your vote. And what my dad said is that what my sister could have done is she could have voted twice, because they didn't actually fix the original ballot. They just sent her in a new one, made a new ballot with her new name, and then sent it in. She could have voted as the other name as well that was misspelt. Doesn't seem like there's much checks and balances on that, does it? There's people on social media burning different ballots. It's just so interesting. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm angry one way or the other, that I'm angry the whole, I'm just saying it's all a show anyways. I don't go one way or the other because I think it's all just an illusion anyways. It's like, yes, I think one's lesser of an evil than the other. I do think that. I think one's more controlled than the other. Personally, that's just my intuitive feeling on this. But more so than that, I think it's a way of polarizing. It's a show in a way, and it's something that keeps people emotionally manipulated, feeding into the system. No president is going to save us from what is happening on the planet. We are going to save ourselves by taking responsibility and by taking our power back. And moving forward into 2021, who knows what's going to happen? My guess is more craziness. My guess is that they're going to try to go back into this lockdown situation, and we're all going to say, okay, let's go. Yes. It is so ridiculous. I mean, I'm not saying not to wear a mask. I'm not saying any of that. But I'm saying it's just ridiculous to me that we have to wear this freaking thing that makes it so it's harder to breathe, which lowers our immune system, which also, I think there's even scientific things that show that it doesn't actually stop the spread. And Fauci or something, I don't even know. I'm not even looking, I'm not an expert. Don't listen to me. I'm just kind of sharing with you my own perspectives on this because I feel like it is so exaggerated. I feel like it is so obvious to me. I feel like there's some longer form agenda here that they're trying to play out, and they want this person in office because if this person's in office, it's more controllable and they can put down some more, ridiculous stuff. But the thing that I'm hoping is that so many people are waking up because of this. It is obvious. And it's becoming more and more obvious as we go that the media is manipulated, the media is controlled. They're only promoting and talking on certain things. It's almost like the Wizard of Oz. Like the end of the Wizard of Oz when it's like behind the curtain. In a way, people are starting to see behind the curtain. They're starting to realize, hey, something's not adding up. Something just feels kind of artificial here. Something just feels kind of planned out. And I think that as time goes on, it's going to really, the benefit is it's going to wake up more and more people. The Cabal, I think that these next couple of years is their desperate attempt to try to shift to a more negative timeline when too many people are waking up. You know, in the book Power versus Force, it says something like, it only takes so many people to outweigh the balance of the negative, of thousands of more of the negative. So it's like one person at like a 500 level of consciousness out of 1,000, which is the level of love, can outbalance like 250,000 that are at 200 and below. So it's kind of like that. So many people are waking up. If you're listening to this episode, then you are waking up. And your energy is influencing a lot of people around you, whether you know it or not, whether you're even talking about this kind of information. And even with the beginning of the year, when it was coming to a lot of the stuff happening with the protests and stuff like that, even with that, there was a lot of things that just weren't adding up. I made videos about it because I was getting messages from people that were at those protests that were saying, hey, we got here. We were one of the first people here, and there were bricks already planted in this spot. And there are other people that have claimed and said that there were some people that were undercover, that were instigating other people. I've even seen videos of this. It was obvious there was something else going on. White people writing things, BLM on buildings and stuff, vandalizing buildings. And when they were confronted, you could just tell that they were not, it wasn't like it was like you could tell that they were, something else was going on. Cars brought in with that were already had this stuff put on it, that were already there before even people got there to these protests. Now, am I saying that all of it wasn't real? No. Once again, when I talk about the thing that happened at the beginning of the year, when I talk about the protests, I'm not saying these things don't exist. I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. I'm not saying that the thing that happened at the beginning of the year was an illusionary thing that didn't exist. But I'm saying that things are being used as emotional manipulation to get us to a certain states of fear so that we're much more easily able to be controlled. And that my hope is that you begin to see the pattern. And that even now with this whole election thing, with the manipulation of these different ballots and all of this stuff, it's fabricated to look a certain way, to be a certain way, so that people just give up their power. You got these big pharmaceutical companies putting money into vaccines, all this crazy stuff. And you look at the track record, it's just obvious. Question it. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not advocating one way or the other. I am just encouraging you to think for yourself and to start to question certain things that are happening. Start to see the pattern. Start to see the pattern. Don't feed it so much. I don't watch the news. I don't watch the media. I know that there's still stuff going on. I know that if you turn on the news, you'll see a ticker of all these things happening. The numbers keep going up. Well, guess what? If you have the numbers keep going up and you have tests that just show that people have it and then they have almost no symptoms of it or they're totally fine, of course the numbers are going up. And if you claim everybody that passes away, that's of an old age, that's passing away of other things, and you claim that they have the Voldemort thing at the beginning of the year, just like my grandpa, then of course the numbers are going to go up. But once again, not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it's being exaggerated. The degree to which it is influenced, I think, is being exaggerated. And once again, if you can get millions of people to believe in this thing and to feed it and to feed fear into people, their immune systems will then weaken, and then it has more power anyways. So it's almost like the control of the elite, of the cabal, or whatever you call it, is that if you can control the narrative, if you can control people's belief systems, you can then control the collective consciousness. And there may be other desperate attempts that come through. And these desperate attempts that come through, be on the lookout. When you start to get into reaction over the next year, over things that happen, observe it. Notice it. And ask yourself, what do you really think is going on? Doesn't have to be conspiracy. Not everything's a conspiracy. But I do believe that there is an agenda of people on the planet that they want to keep people in fear. They want to keep people giving up their rights, keep people giving up their power, because when people are in that state, they're much more malleable, they're much more controllable, they're much more observant, they're much more looking to authority for certainty. And if you look at the pattern, it's been problem, reaction, solution this whole entire year. And it's funny because some people will believe, oh yes, they'll believe so much in the mask, they'll be so much in the Voldemort thing at the beginning of the year, that what they then do is they forget about it when they go to celebrate the victory. Yay! And then they're in these huge groups of people, and it's like, what do you or don't you believe? Even then, when the protests were happening, guess what? People believed, oh, you got to stay 6 feet apart, you got to be in your house, you got to stay in lockdown. But then the protests happen, nope, everything goes out the window. Higher mission here. So it's interesting. But I think deep down, people are starting to see that there's something else going on. And the agenda of the cabal is to control the media. And if you stop watching the media, you stop feeding the negative timeline. And don't be in fear either. I think we're waking up. We're waking up to more of who we are. And as time goes on, we're going to continue to wake up. And what's going to happen is we're shutting out, and by not feeding those negative timelines, by us doing our own inner work, by us raising our own vibration, we're shifting our timeline, and it's beginning to really change a lot, which is very empowering. It's very exciting to see, and I think that there's going to be more transformation in this lifetime than ever before, and it's going to continue to happen, and it starts with us raising our own vibe and not feeding the negative timelines with fear. Even sometimes studying some of the stuff like, I know people that are into QAnon, they're into a lot of the conspiracy theory stuff. If it's making you feel negative emotion, you can be aware of it, but be aware of how much it's draining your energy. Because I was studying that stuff at the beginning of the year, but what I had to eventually do is take my energy back and see, is this really helping me to help other people? Because if I'm in a lower vibe, then I can't really help. So you can be aware of it, but sometimes one of the tactics I think of the elite is that they put a whole bunch of disinformation campaigns out there. And I'm not saying QAnon's disinformation. I don't know. All I'm saying is that there's different disinformation campaigns out there that I think feed fear, so that when people are believing in it or a part of it, it almost is still feeding the negative timeline. So it's kind of an interesting perspective, but I think that right now it's just really about us being aware and doing our own inner work, raising our own vibration, being aware that some of this stuff does exist, but not going into the reaction mode, staying centered in our hearts. I think that the elite has other cards up their sleeve, but what's going to happen is we're waking up with it. The voter fraud, this things is waking people up more and more, and the media is becoming so obvious with how ridiculous it is. I just see it when I go to the gym or something. I see it, I'm like, what is going on? People believe in this? People believe that this stuff is real? It's so obvious that it's all fabrication. That it's there to make us believe certain things, so that we can bring certain things into our collective consciousness. So anyways, that's my perspective. We can team up together and choose to not buy into it anymore. We can choose to put our energy in what we want, to what we're actually passionate about. We can stop watching the news, stop watching that freaking ticker going up. And we can realize that we're spiritual beings having temporary human experiences, that we came here to wake up. We came here to remember who we are. And that if we don't buy into it, we're not feeding it. We take our power back, take responsibility for our own vibe, and watch how that changes our life. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know that, we went into some esoteric stuff that haven't really shared before, or if I did share, it wasn't to the extreme as some of these. But remember, it's a very powerful time to be alive just in general. Also, if you haven't already reviewed the podcast on iTunes, that would really mean the world to me. It really helps the podcast grow and lets me know to put more energy into the podcast as well. Also, in case you didn't know, there's a second YouTube channel called Aaron Doughty Podcast, where the video of this is, if you're listening to this on either iTunes or Spotify. And then also, if you're on the second YouTube channel, you can get on iTunes or Spotify. It's the Aaron Doughty Podcast. and it's easy to listen to. It's easy to listen to while you're working out. You just, the episodes can download. It's super easy. So I just wanted to share that with you guys as well. And other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you want me to make more like this. I know it's a little more esoteric, but other than that, as always, I will talk to you guys later. Peace, much love, and namaste.